I'm very relaxed, as you can tell. I've been stretching.
You're still doing your NRL stuff?
Yeah. We got a coach course on Sunday, so we're running mod games and international games coach for new coaches. So, which is always good fun. I like teaching.
Did that have any effect? Like, because Queensland is pretty much back to normal, isn't it, with sporting stuff in relation to COVID?
Yeah, it sort of is. But the problem is NRL. We all lost our jobs because of COVID, but we got put on that job seeker, that JobKeeper thing, and which works. I don't mind, but I got another job with Hewitt. I'm teaching Hewitt with ERGT, who run all the Hewitt stuff on base. So I got a job with them and just cancelled my JobKeeper because I don't really need it. That's someone else can use it. I can work.
And Hewitt, for people that aren't in the army, is drowning. It's resistance to drowning in a helicopter. Hey,
essentially, yeah, it's helicopter underwater escape training, and with the pool shut for a month, and we had to use the Laverack pool, and that was rated. That was probably about 18 degrees the other day when we jumped in, and me and cold water don't mix well, and water beads off me anyway. But that was just another experience going in with a 3 mil wetty, and it's that cold. It was ridiculous. I froze my ass off.
No,
I don't recommend it.
I was a red hat. You know how many hats you got? Was it red hats for you little panicking little bitch?
Yep, red hat if you panicked, and it was it's yellow hats if you are feeling all right about it all.
I wore 2 red hats.
You would have been the one like the other day. As soon as we went underwater, he forgot to take a breath and just panicked. Like you could hear him too, like underwater, and his arms and legs going everywhere, and we just hit the straws to get him out of there. And I'm like, okay, bro, just calm down, take a breath. Not underwater, obviously. There's one bit a couple of weeks ago. They kept trying to take a breath. When he come up to the surface, he'd breathe in as his head broke, but his mouth was still under, and swallow some water and come up and scuff. I'm like, dude, that's the 3rd time you've done that, mate. Can you like calm down and take a breath at the surface, not under it? And he's like, oh, I'm very sorry, mate. I'm like, that's okay, man. Like, just listen, bro.
Is there still the generalization that Asians and black people can't swim? And is that true with bloody Hewitt still, or nah?
Yeah, I think the surprising thing is the amount of young guys from the battalions that have never swum before at the moment. They're all young and fit and keen, but they've never swum in the ocean. They've never swum in a pool. Like, one of the boys was teaching people how to swim the week before the course. That's the scary part of, and you know what? 90% of them are coming from amphib too, area. So it's that's the scary part is these young fellows are keen and they're awesome kids, but if you can't swim and you're in an amphib battalion, and you're going to be in the water a lot.
One of the boys from one, he cannot swim. He used to actually swap cam shirts. So his name, he'd give someone else his cam shirt so he could go and do the Hewitt, and he'd just write his details down because he fucking drowns straight up. It's like emergency ascent.
We saw that list that had Mexer on there. We never saw you down there, but your shirt parts are a few times.
So, I mean, that's what you're doing now. But I mean, this all come about. You've had quite a, what's the word for it? Long, prestigious career in the army. Let's go with that one.
Oh, long career, yeah. I don't think prestigious is the word. I think for me, I had a career where I loved every bit of it, and I wasn't scared to speak my mind when I didn't agree with things, and I served with some incredibly brave human beings, and some good humans that just treated you with respect, no matter who you were and what unit you belonged to, or what corps badge you had. And I think, I did 18 years, and I really wanted to get to 20, but the last 6 months I was finishing my uni and going into work, and it just wasn't the right type of place for me to be in. It had changed a fair bit, from when I joined, and it just wasn't right for me as a person, and I had to make that decision and make it a clean cut, because for me, negativity's not good for me in my life. I don't need to be getting dragged down all the time by people that can't find the good in stuff. I don't need to be around people that think that their shit doesn't stink because they've got more rank. I think the most enjoyable part out of my career being a medic is I got to interact with heaps of cool people in heaps of different units, and they don't have that opportunity anymore. And coaching, like rugby, I joined the army to play rugby and to meet women. And I was doing all right until I
Not
met
to
my
serve
wife.
you, cunt.
Yeah, I was going good until I got to Townsville, and Tam walked out of the RAP, and I was like, oh, fuck, you're in trouble here, mate. You need to move. And I couldn't move. And rugby, I didn't make it to Army like old Suts here, but I got to work with Army, and I got to coach him when he was at 1RAR, and got to coach UMX. And I mean, you weren't too bad. Like,
I had no idea. I had no choice. I was living with Sutter. Azru, were you Azru captain, Suts?
Your microphone's off, Sutter. That a hissy fit.
He's. That's right. So of the 18 years you do remember, there are a couple of minutes that you don't remember for fucking extreme reasons.
Yeah. 2011, we were in Afghan, and as a medic and as a sergeant, it's rare to get into those positions where you're a company medic, where you're looking after 150 odd soldiers and from all different corps. And I was privileged and grateful to get that opportunity to be part of that company medic world again, being a sergeant, because you're more an admin at that stage. I think you start looking after more people, and you start running, doing a lot more planning and not much time out, on hands on the job. And on the 13th of August in 2011, we had a patrol out. I was at home. I just set up my new laptop that Tam had sent over, and I was talking to her on the phone, and there was a massive explosion from where the boys were patrolling, and I said, Tam, I've got to go. I think I've got a job here. So I went outside, and we reacted pretty quick. And when we got out there was a vehicle that had been hit by an improvised explosive device. I know that there's a bit of angst about people using the word IED because it can, people say it triggers them. But for me, if we're not real about things, we're just going to push stuff around and not actually address issues. So
yeah, man,
I'm
it
going to use that
enables
word.
people's. I think you trigger warnings and all that stuff enables people to continue their victim mentality. It's like, mate, you've got to get through it. There's no point, and yeah, we don't do trigger warnings and shit like that's ridiculous. I think, mate.
Well, see,
it's
avoidance too. Like it's something that we learn when we go through PTSD is you should do things to avoid attacking issues. But that day when it was going pretty good, I ended up on the gun. I was the only one in our vehicles. I was on the rear gun, and I love being up there because I like being able to see around.
Combat medic sergeant as a rear shooter.
Yeah, killing it. I tell you what, the knee-jerk reaction after that, no medics on the Top Gun ever. After that, they just canned it. I'm like, in Iraq, we didn't have a choice. You either went out there and did your job, or they wouldn't take you. So, we picked up all the engineers and stuff from the car and the infantry boys, and then we turned around. We had about 1,200 meters to travel to get back to our patrol base, Wally. We went about 200 meters down the road, and I remember because I pulled the butt into the weapon close so I could lean over the side to look along the road, and that's something that I'd learned in Iraq. You scan, and your weapon follows you wherever you scan, and then you check the edge of the road, because if you can see, you'll pick stuff up if you look on the side of the road. And the POMs are awesome at teaching us that. So I tucked the weapon in. I remember looking down and got to my rear wheel where I'd standing directly over the top of, and I just remember this massive, big, blinding white flash, and then 3 shadows standing over me, and then a good friend of myself and Tam's, Bernie, who was also a medic, and she was in the research. So I remember her giving me a kiss on the cheek, and then I remember seeing my other mate, Christy McNaught, who was in Kandahar. Yep. And then I woke up in Germany. So there's a whole sort of period there where I'm hazy over what happened, but the boys fill me in pretty good. So I wasn't actually found. I've got video where I wasn't actually found. Like, they didn't realise that I was hurt until nearly 8-9 minutes after the actual blast happened. They saw me on the side of the road with a huge circle of blood and line on my left side, and they had no working mine labs. And Ty Rodder, who was the explosive ordnance disposal dude, good mate, came around the corner and searched a path to me, and they got to me and said that my left boot was near my head. My left arm they couldn't see because underneath my left leg. My right hand, the top half of the hand was folded over the back, and I was, moaning and screaming in pain. And they had me on the ground there for nearly 2 hours before they could get a medic out to me. And once they got the medic out to me, he had me for 6 minutes. He said the first 2 minutes I was answering questions and asking him what's happening, like what happened. And then he said there was nothing, and he checked, and I was dead for 4 minutes. They loaded me on the chopper. I was dead for another 4 minutes and spontaneously woke up. We landed in Tarankout, and they put me on the table, and 5 hours on a resus table to square me away. And then I went into surgery for 11 hours, died in surgery, and came back out of that. They brought me back, which was pretty awesome. And then on the plane flight to Germany from Kandahar, I died, and we did an emergency landing at Bagram Airfield, and me and an American bloke that had died got rushed into surgery and got brought back again, and then landed in Germany. And that was the 15th of August, 2011, and I woke up I went straight to surgery. Woke up on the 16th of August on my birthday with the head surgeon saying, "How you going? Happy birthday." And I said, "Who the fuck are you?" And then I looked to my right, and my old RSM and one of my old CSMs, Richo, was sitting there, and I looked at him and sort of went, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And in my head, I was like, if you're supposed to be in Dubai and I'm in Afghanistan, what are you doing here? And he goes, "Do you know where you are, Coco?" And I said, "No." And everything was white. And he said, you're in Landstuhl Hospital in Germany, mate. You got blown up." And I was like, well, fuck that. Okay, that's interesting.
So how many times did you fucking die?
3.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Is it? And is there anything on the other side? Are we in trouble?
It's all black. Nah,
yeah,
it's all black.
It's not all white.
I don't begrudge anyone that sees lights or anything like that. I don't say that they're making it up, because you see what you see, and I think your beliefs will push you away to see what you see. But for me, it was all black, which I was comfortable with, obviously. But I think there's got to be a part of you somewhere that is not going to give up. And I don't know why I'm still here. Like, that's one of the questions that still baffles me today is, and I carry survivor's guilt really heavy, because we've lost good people, and seemingly for less things. And I, still struggle with that concept, and I'm still here. And, a lot of people say, then there must be a reason you're still here. And that's really good. You can say that stuff, but at the same time, why? Like, I can roll out of this and then watch people, we love and cherish, lose to smaller incidents. Battlefield incidents aren't really small per se, but compared to an IED blast, there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of people out there that we know that have been caught in IED blasts. And, I still question that, especially around anniversary dates and stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm sort of grateful that I've had those experiences and I've been able to live through those experiences, because for me it makes it real. And when I talk about stuff with my business, speaking business, it gives everyone like a full kick in the face when they whinge about how bad their life is, because the car broke down, they're running late for work, they got booked by the cops because they're speeding. All this shit that they whinge about, I just don't see the sense in it, because I think, what's the point? You can either choose to live your life well and happy and fun, or you can choose to be a negative. I was going to swear big time. You can choose to be a negative person. I was on a roll nearly there, so I was going to let it go. But you can choose to be a negative person and live negative, and then have that as part of your life, and then try and find a way through things. But you're just going to go into this cycle So for me, it's more important that I try and have fun. I still have bad days. I still have. You could talk to my kids and like some days Dad's not here. Like he might be sitting on the couch, but he's not here. That that's still relevant for me. That's still real. And that's something I think we forget, that we're fixed as we can be, but there's still going to be days that we're not here because we're lost in our own thoughts. And I think businesses and employers, if we get that understanding out to them, that it's good to hire veterans because veterans have a different perspective, but some days they're just not going to be there. They'll get the work done, but you just won't be able to intervene and chat because they're just lost in their own world. And it's that's a real thing for me. That's something I live every day. There's periods of my day that I don't remember. Like, my memory shit anyway. Like, I'm 40 on the 16th of August, but I don't remember what I have for breakfast some days by lunchtime. That's just the way my head is now because brain injury and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a different perspective on life, I suppose. I bring a different perspective on life, and I think by the time I'd met Suts and that at 1RER when I was coaching, I wasn't the regular sort of coach that I think he'd experienced before. I didn't have that same viewpoint. I like to look at individuals and bring strength. I put Suts in my leadership team in the first game he played for 1RER, and he was shocked. But I don't think you realise that's how much you exude leadership quality. You know what I mean? I think you're only realising your potential now, which is something that is a blessing, because some people see that they've got leadership quality too early and they let it go to their head. But there's a reason why I put you in my leadership group, and you return that in spades by being just a good human being and playing good rugby. And then off the field, you're just a better dude. So, I've got full respect for everything you do.
Don't let it get to his head, mate.
No, well, Mex, I could talk about you, Mex, but it wouldn't be, nice for people to listen to me run you down.
Oh, mate, and it doesn't matter. Fucking, I started playing rugby, and because I had no idea. I was like, yeah, I'll go play rugby. Sure. I was living with Sarts at the time, and then Rita was obviously fucking Azra as well. I'm like, well, we're gonna learn today. Like, fuck it.
I mean, you got good times and bad times. I think everybody, there's a lot of veterans out there that have a negative relationship with military, but I mean, yeah, it's up to them how they view their military careers, and I'm not going to tell them that they can't have a negative recollection of things that happened to them and stuff like that. But I don't believe in carrying grudges. If I had a problem with someone, I'd just tell them, which a lot of officers didn't like, which probably stalled my career and kept me out of corporal for a long time. But
yeah, but you also got the Nurses Cross, right?
Yeah,
which is the highest
cross.
award you can get for
as a medic. Yeah,
as a medic.
Yeah, there it is. There, look, we'll put up on the camera there so people can see it, mate. So,
it's the other camera.
Like it's I'm grateful because that day reminded me how quick things can go wrong, very quickly. But yeah, it's one of the highest awards we can get as a medic. They've stopped giving it out now, so I think there's 31 that have been given out total.
Well, they just went, no, I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of conflict with why medics were getting it because it was called a nursing service cross. And we said to them, well, because we do your job better. But, there's things, it's true sometimes. There's some good nurses out there, but, man, I had problems with some of them. But, yeah, it's so now they give a Distinguished Service Medal out, which it sits a bit lower than where that's in the Distinguished Service Cross family. And I disagreed with what they did with giving them a lesser, because I think medically we need to recognise that there's some things that normal people can't solve, and then you have these medics that come out of nowhere and just can do things and they should be recognised for what they've done and how they've done it. And I'm grateful that I got recognised for that day. That was a high range. It was it was like out of the blue completely. I don't know. Do you want me to tell you that story?
Yeah, send it, mate. I want to hear the Nurses Cross, man. 100%.
So I was working with B Squadron 3-4 Cav, and we're running a live fire range on one part of the range up at high range here, and there was a another troop. They were doing some dry runs, blank fire runs down near Keel Bottom. And over the radio, we just heard that there was an incident and there was widowmakers, the big trees, and there was they brushed up against the widowmaker, and like when I say brushed, you couldn't have touched this thing lighter. Like they brushed up like a feather against it. They didn't actually bump it, only the photos would do justice, or the people that were there, that they would understand what I'm talking about. The widowmakers are so like fragile, and you can bang them with a hammer and they won't fall, but then you can walk next to it and the whole top half will come down on top of your head, which is why they call them widowmakers. They're just dead trees.
That's what got DeLangen's brother. He was our bush, and a widowmaker dropped on his head.
Yeah.
Nah, different bloke.
No, not DeLangen's brother.
That passed away.
Yep. He got so years before he got hit on the head.
Oh, years before.
Yeah.
Yeah. He crushed his fucking neck, and he was leaking spinal fluid into his neck, and I think that was a contributing factor, mate. Like,
Fuck
just
me dead.
Yeah, bro, it's fucking hectic.
Well, mate,
he was driveway, mate. Mrs. found him.
It'll mess you up because the troop commander had just come from tanks. He was a cool dude. He's Captain Robertson. I can never remember his first name, but I remember his name and his face clear as a bell, and his fiance and his mum. And he loved, because being a tanky, no disrespect to tankies, I love them. And if you've got a good tanky commander or someone with a tank, you're going to sit behind it, because they don't have a thing where they get out and clear things like infantry. They clear by fire. So he was amazing. He would clear by fire. Oh, there's a gully to the left. Can you clear it? He'd just turn around and give it a burst with the 50 cal. Cleared. Well, fuck. If you're sitting in that gully and a 50 cal gets shot through the grass, you're dead. Well, then that's cleared, I suppose. But he was a bit wild and erratic sometimes with his clearances. But he was standing in the troop commander hatch, and that tree came down and hit him on the top of the head. Like it was freaky when I got there. That the tree was still lying across the vehicle. It was 8 meters. It weighed about somewhere between 60 and 80 kilos. And it was just all hardwood. It was just a big old hardwood tree. And I just went to because it didn't look heavy, so I went to just brush it off the side of the truck, of the APC, so I'd get to the troop commander, and I went to push it and it wouldn't move. And I was like, fuck, I had to get my weight behind her and really shove it off. And I'm like, we need to keep that tree. They kept the tree. They had it up on the gate at B Squadron, and they've got it up at the museum at the squadron there. But he was standing in the hatch, and because you listen to the radio, and it was a bit of a debacle. The wrong grid got given out. There was no beer vehicle access, so no Land Rovers and stuff could get into where they were. But they sent my Sarge in a Land Rover with the trailer to go get him, and we were on the range shooting. Once the range finished, we hightailed it. We were an hour and a half away, and I was on the radio to the boys. I said, just tell me what's happening, and they told me I should take his helmet off. And taking his helmet off is considered a massive no-no when you deal with neck injury. So I was prepared to take that risk, but he was complaining of so much pain in the back of his head and neck. I said, just take it off real carefully, and talked him through over the radio. By the time we got there, we went past the grid that was given to our Sarge, and he was just on the side of the road going, what the fuck's going on? So jump in, and he jumped in the APC with us, and we got around there, and it was rough country getting in. Real rough country, like that bucket was banging around and we were getting clanged around. So we, when I got there standing in the hatch, and I said, are you right? And I brushed the back of his neck with my hands just lightly, and he just about screamed and passed out. And I said, all right, we've got dramas here. We've got a pro and casualty with neck fractures. We need to get him out of here. So I said, I need a chopper. And we got onto range control and said, we need a chopper. And they said, they rang Care Flight. Care Flight was out at Charters Towers picking up a heart attack victim. No chopper. You got to road move him. And I said, I can't road move him. Like, we can't get out of here in a normal vehicle. And if we drive out, we'll kill him. And they said, no, you need to road move him to us, and we'll have the ambo meet us. And I said, tell him to fucking get me a chopper from 5 Avon, because if we fucking move him by road, he'll die. And then range control were a little bit like, you can't, we got to do this. And I grabbed the radio and said, give me a fucking chopper. If we remove him by road, this guy will die. Give me a fucking chopper now. So they got on the 5 Av. 5 Av flew the Chinook up, picked up some Mambos at range control. They picked him up, and we got him out safely, obviously. And then about a week later, I got to go down and see him, and he had his C1 was in 3 pieces, and the ligaments from his C2 process were holding it together. And when I got to the hospital, I had the driver, Put Horton. He actually runs Ironside Coffee. Put Horton, they have an Ironside chat thing. He's a cool dude. We'll have to yarn to him at some stage, but he was beside himself. He was blaming himself. I said, mate, it's not your fault. Like, this isn't your fault. This shit just happens sometime. So he went in to see him, and the surgeon was there, and he came out, and he was only in Townsville, like, for a development thing. And when he said, I've never seen anyone come in with that injury. He's seen 3 people with that injury. It's the first time he's seen anyone come in alive. And he said, what'd you do? And I said, I just did everything real slow and carefully. We had a KED, the old Kendrick extrication device, the old green thing with the strap. We used that. KED, man, like that big green thing that we usually have in the vehicles. And it's basically a splint that sits down behind them, and you buckle them in as tight as you can, and they got a collar on, and then you get their knees up basically in a 90-degree position, and you lift them out. So we had to lift him out the turret, past the weapons, like we had to take guns out of the machine, everything. It was a tough day, but that was a cool day. So I went into the office to his room after that, and his wife was there, and his fiance at the time, and his mum, and she just gave me the big hug, and he was sitting there with a big halo around his head, which is a big framework, and he was eating bloody custard or something at the time, and I was like, holy shit, like I didn't think you'd pull out of this. And he goes, mate, I just woke up in hospital like this, and I was like,
and he's all right. Like, he's not a paraplegic or anything like that.
No, he's not a paraplegic, mate. He signed with full, but he had to drive a desk from then on. He couldn't, be a crew commander anymore. So he went to Canberra, and I don't know if he's still in. And if he's out there today, and he gets to watch this somehow, or if anybody knows him, just I'm grateful that he's still here. I'm grateful that he's still got function, and I give kudos to him because he was in a bucket load of pain, and I couldn't give him pain relief, and he just sucked it up.
Because it's a head injury, right? You can't.
Yeah. So potential head injury, but C-spine, like they say this thing, C 3, 4, 5 keeps the body alive because all the nerves that run your lungs and your heart and stuff goes through 3, 4, 5. And his C1, everything from that C1 controls basically your head and runs the nerves and comes up into your face and stuff like that. So he was in a bad way, and I'm glad that that teamwork there, that the teamwork that we did that day got me that nursing service cross, and that's something that I've always said, that without my sergeant there, Chris Stindle, who's a big dude, like he's taller and bigger than me, and he basically lifted a 90-kilo dude out of the top of the hatch by himself as I controlled him from underneath, and then held him there until I got back out and climbed up on top of the vehicle. That's and it was a special day, when we got him out of there alive. So that's part and parcel of being a medic, and I took that because my mates are there, and they looked after us, and we all helped each other out, and that's what the Army teaches you, is that teamwork and mateship will transcend everything that you go against.
And that was before, was that when you were at SECO before you went over to Afghan?
Yeah, that was 2004. We had 6 Pro 1s in the space of 2 years at B Squadron, and pretty bad ones too. I learned a lot, I think Timor was good for me because I was working with medics that have been around since Rwanda, Somalia days, and they taught me a hell of a lot about controlling what you can control, being in that moment and not being anywhere else, which, we talk about mindfulness. I don't think people understand the strength that mindfulness will give you, is where you focus on the one thing, like in the meditation and stuff, where you can focus on one thing and not think about anything else. I don't think people understand too that mindfulness doesn't have to be a candlelight or kumbaya and stuff like that. I think me and Adrian have debated this many times. Well, we've agreed with it, but we've debated with other people too. But mindfulness is anything that takes your focus away from everything around you and puts it into one place. And for me, it's reading. Like, I can read a book on a plane trip from here to Sydney or here to Brisbane. I'll punch out a book. But it's good for me because it empties my head and I just concentrate on what I'm reading and the words on the page. Whereas for some people, it might be looking to that candle or I like watching the water too and fire. That's that's another way to do mindfulness for me. But we can go through life and forget that simple things can be misconstrued as not having an impact on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like me watching my kids play takes my mind off everything. So
there's something special about medics and why they joined up to do it. And then it's funny because you see a lot of boys, grunts who get out. A lot of grunts go across to become like an ambo
paramedic,
or paramedics, yeah, and they go across, or they transfer to be an actual medic. What was the draw card for you? Was like, well, there's heaps. It's Albury, or was there like a higher? I mean, people. Let's face it, we all join the army for the same reason, but and
I
it's
don't
not.
know about you, but I train for rugby and women, so that's tick for me. But
camaraderie, rugby and women.
The hardest thing was my brother was infantry, and my older brother was 51 RQR up in the Gulf and doing Norfolk stuff. So when I went to Kapuka, all the sergeants knew my brothers, and they were like, "Oh, sweet, so you coming to infantry too, mate?" And I was like, "No." Nah. They're like, "Why not?" I'm like, "Okay." So I go to medical corps, and all the women go to medical corps, and you go to infantry, and all the men go to infantry. So I'm not seeing why you're arguing with me. And he was like, "Get the fuck out of my office." And I was like, "Gladly, Sergeant." And right up until the last week, they were like, he had paperwork for me to corps transfer, and he was like, "Come on, dude, like, if you're half as mad as your brother, you'll do really well in infantry." I said, "Well, I'm probably madder than my brother, but I'm a lot smarter." And if you haven't noticed, I put my case forward, and I think I've still won. And he was like, "Fuck off." I was like, "All right then." The draw card, I think the biggest draw card for people coming across the medical corps is you actually get something out of it. And you see the infantry boys nowadays, it's hard for them to transition into civil life because, and I'm not, like, you can do security if you want, or you can go work overseas, but some people don't want to do that. And until the army wakes up and starts thinking about how to prepare people for post-service, this problem's not going to go away. And it's a retention issue. Number one, it's a retention issue because if you want people to stay in, offer them something to stay in. And the second thing is you should be preparing them to get out of the army at the same level that they leave instead of having to go back at the bottom of the pile again somewhere. You know what I mean? So for me to come out, and I'm like, I didn't get anything from my medical career because all the stuff that happened after where you get diplomas and all that sort of stuff and endorsed enrolled nursing tickets, they sort of caught up with us and said, "Oh yeah, you can have your endorsed enrolled nursing ticket, and here's your certificate towards a diploma in paramedical science because of training's changed." So I got out of the army and I had nothing from my medical career. So 18 years, the only thing I had was frontline management and some health and safety stuff. And I said, well, there's got to be something better. But now the kids are getting out with diplomas of paramedical science. They're getting a endorsed enrolled nurse diploma, so they can go straight into working at the same level or a higher level than what they came out. A lot of them are doing uni as well, so they're coming out as an RN or a paramedic, and they're getting assistance to do that. And I think that's awesome. But infantry don't have that yet, and it's an archaic way of thinking. And I could rattle on about this for hours, but I think the draw card for them to come across to medicals, besides meeting beautiful women, I mean, let's face it, medical corps full of them.
And beautiful
the draw
men,
card is well, look at me, I'm a long drop of chocolate. They actually get something back for what they put in, but it's also a lot of the boys that I've seen go across have this. Because to do what we do, you've got to have this thing inside you that you want to help people get through life and you want to help them get over things, and you want to be that sounding board. So as much as I was a medic in Iraq and East Timor and Afghanistan, I was also like the sounding board for people to bounce ideas off, to discuss stuff that had happened on patrol, to vent about home life where spouses are just not coping well. So I don't know if I slept much nights in Iraq because of that, or I didn't because I wanted to help them, but sometimes being in air is the best way to do it. And being a medic, they trust you, and if they trust you, they'll talk to you. So a lot of them boys that do come across from infantry, and I think the best thing, I've spoken to the school about this too. If you have retreads, put them on the course,
Yeah,
because not only do they teach,
they put them at the
they
bottom of the
learn.
barrel.
Not only do they learn, they teach those young medics that have just come off the street or out of school. They teach them about discipline. They teach them about how to party properly and get back at 7:30 in the morning, go on parade. They teach them about all that stuff, resilience. It's the small things that you learn in your career that no one teaches you. They mentor. That's the stuff that I see. And I go down to the School of Health and speak to new medics every year, about 4 times a year, apart from COVID. But I also speak to new officers of corps too, and also the logistics corps. So it's interesting to see the impact that ex-grunts have in those rooms. And I think it's the most positive thing that we ever did was start making that a priority, is giving people that have already been in the army serving, and a lot of these kids have had really good careers and they've served overseas and they've got so much knowledge, and they get to drop that knowledge on new kids, and it's awesome. It's mentoring at its best.
I mean, here's a current fucking topic for you. Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
Protests. It's happening in the NRL. I think even the army come out and said that we've got to fix the racism problem in the army. Now, I don't know if I can comment, but
I'll comment.
I don't think there's a whole lot of racism from my. Yeah.
Well,
go.
Look,
I want to hear. Oh, yeah, send it.
If anyone says that there's no racism in the army, then they probably need a punch in the face, because it does happen, and it happened. I've had it. I've been called everything under the sun in my career, and I'm one of them people that I just don't tolerate that shit. So if I don't agree with it, I just tell people get fucked.
Get fucked.
I think the thing we have to remember is that now you'll put this in a way that I don't offend people, which I don't really give a fuck about either, to tell you the truth. So if they're going to be offended, they're going to be offended. But this is Coco's spin on it, and this is a bit of the darkness that's going to come out of it, because I think we can afford to be real, because we love each other like brothers, and people are going to listen to us anyway. And regardless of what they think of me, I'm going to speak some truth, regardless of the racism that I went through. It didn't make me or diminish me as a person or turn my light out or make me, I didn't carry grudges about that shit, because it's based on people's perceptions in life and how they've been, taught when they grow up. That's the one thing I know about racism. The second thing is there's various forms of racism, and, you can't just single one thing out and not acknowledge the rest. Do I believe that,
So specifically, like during in your army career?
In my army career,
racist.
I've been exposed to some real racist dudes. When I was at actually when I was coaching you boys with 1RAR, we played against 2RAR. There was an individual from 2RAR that wasn't from Australia originally, and he didn't like black people, and he openly showed that. He wouldn't even shake my hand. And
was that the Macaroni Shield, the one we were lost against 2RAR? I remember they said there was double movement. And Black Stevo. I'm not racist. It's just a descriptor. Old man Stevo.
Yeah.
He scored that final try in the corner, and they were like, "Nah, it was a double movement or something."
And then they knocked on the base of scrum and scored.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, that game. So an individual from 2RAR. And as an officer, I think you should carry yourself in at standards required by everybody in the Australian Army, not just your own. And he made it quite clear that he didn't like black people from the first moment I met him. And he was, he was my OC at the time, and he didn't shake my hand or acknowledge me. So I had a bit to say to him, and it probably didn't help me in my career. But I'm not going to stand for that shit, but just because of my colour.
Because this is coming from the King Panther, and that's what the episode's titled is, King Panther. And that comes from the footy days and the black line, not the back line. And we've got it all through it. And there's it's not right. Like we still have the black line.
100% we do, rugby, mate. And that's not racist, but
so all black.
If you're going to be racist, you say things with venom in your words. There's got to be something. There's steel behind it. You're saying things with that view that you're going to fight for your life because of your beliefs. And that's all fucking well and good. If you want to have a shot, I'll fuck you up. But the biggest thing for me is just because of my skin color shouldn't allow you to treat me differently.
No, fuck no, never.
In regards to racism in Australia, do I think there's racism in Australia? Yep. Do I think that there's racism predominantly against Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders? I've seen it, so yes, I do believe that. But at the same time, I've seen what good humans, black or white, can do with an opportunity where they disregard that stuff and don't let it sit on their back.
Yeah, because it's interesting, man. Because I mean, I must come obviously because I'm not black. I don't get the little innuendos or the back. I must have. To me, I've never seen it because obviously I'm white. No one's ever racist towards me, mate.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, remember Muddy? We were in the Mad Cow, and the only time I've ever seen racism in Australia, I was like, racism doesn't. I was like walking around like racism doesn't exist. It's fucking made up. And this white dude walked up to me, Sutter, and Muddy, who's Muddy,
Skinny legs, Muddy. I keep telling him train
black
legs.
as midnight. Yeah, and walked up to us in the club, and he was like, "Oh, do you know this?" He said, "Do you know this black cunt?" And I was like, and he was talking to me or Sutter, and I was like, we all thought he was each other's mates, and Sutter's like, "He's not my mate," and I was like, "Fuck, he's not my mate," and we were like, "Oh well," and then he went to sleep.
Yeah.
And
But see,
and it was a white person that put him to sleep. It was a white person that put him to sleep, and the bouncers come straight in, and they chicken wing Muddy out of the club, and then the cops were there, and they're all standing around, and Muddy's like, "I fucking didn't touch the guy. Like, you're under arrest for assault, blah blah blah," and I was about to put my foot in it, and Sutter was like, "Nah, man, let's just pop off because when they see the footage, they're gonna realize it was not a black person that hit him." And sure as shit. And then from that point on, mate, I was like, "Fuck off."
Yeah.
There you go, mate.
Look, it does happen. As for, now I got really close friends, and you know what? I'll support stuff like that. But Black Lives Matter, in my opinion. See, Australia's got its own problems with, what happened to Aboriginals that we don't acknowledge, and I I understand that, if we're going to do things right, we teach all history. You don't just teach parts of history that you feel comfortable with. You've got to be open to, everything bad and everything good, which, as a country, we still don't do very well. But as for the Black Lives Matter stuff, yeah, you know what? There's stuff that happens in jails that between police and Indigenous individuals or black people, but the bigger picture is the fact that the biggest thing that I see that people aren't acknowledging is black on black crime is one of the biggest factors in the US.
It's fucking massive.
It is massive in Australia too. And as soon as
when we talk about what's happening in the communities,
people shut them down and call them hypocrites and stuff like this. But in order to solve a problem, you don't avoid it by just talking about part of it. You have to talk about the whole thing. And I've got some really, really good close friends in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander life, and I love them to death. And I will support them wholeheartedly with whatever they need to do. But what I won't do is jump on a bandwagon where we create.
Yeah, man, I don't think that's in question at all. And the fucking thing, but the thing that's pissing me off is Black Lives Matter is a fucking nuanced statement, mate. Well, it's like, yes, mate, Black Lives, like we fucking oath, mate. But how do you fix a problem with leaders in the fucking community to stand up and do it? And if there's racism, stamp it out.
Yeah, it's a community.
I've never seen it as a.
This isn't just a black issue; it's a community issue. If you take color out of it, all lives matter. Like lives matter. You don't need to put a color in front of it to get your point across. And I grew up, and I'm half white. My white's on the inside like a coconut. My nickname's Coco. Like you could probably, like I've been told by heaps of people, man, they shouldn't call you Coco. That's racist. And I'm like, it's not fucking racist. It's my nickname that I've had since my first few days in the army. Like, we played against the English Army squad that toured out here in 2000 and I headbutted a prop from that team. That was beautiful. And people call me Coconut because of that. And Kingy, who was the King of Tonga's son, he was overseas he's from Tongan Army, and he was doing an exchange sort of thing over here with us. And he got called fob. But we didn't take offence to being called fob or Coconut or anything like that. I think we can talk about this subject for hours and have different opinions and everything like that. But the bottom line is this: Black Lives Matter. Yeah, I'm a big believer that everybody matters. And if we're going to talk about those issues that they want to talk about, then we talk about all the fucking issues. We don't just talk about singular issues as part of the problem, and we don't blanket our coppers.
Yeah, I think because people just jump on. They jump onto a winning horse, mate, and you get people. And I'm sick of white activists, mate, jumping on and being like, I'm super woke because I think black people I'm like, yeah, fucking, I get racism shit too, bro. Don't try and make me to be a shit cunt because you want to jump and go down a march and make yourself feel better. So there's psychological egotism and altruistic behavior. And there's still an argument as to whether true altruism exists. And altruistic behavior is like, I'm going to help this old lady down the street because she needs a help crossing the road. Or inherently or inceptually, are you helping her because you get a little fucking internal kick out of it and you get to go home and tell your missus, yeah, I helped this old lady down the road. So, or there's psychological egotism. And the argument is those two things. And I think that true altruistic behavior, I don't think a 17-year-old latte sipping hippie is ultra woke enough and has gone through enough shit to have actual altruistic, you know what I mean? Like when you're in the trenches with these boys and you deploy with them and you're brothers and you don't see that sort of shit, like you don't see color and you can go, yeah, there's no race on my.
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
I think that's different. I think that's
it's your perception.
Fucking 18-year-old.
I didn't get a handout or anything like that because I was black. I worked hard for everything that I have, and I think everybody's given the same opportunity to achieve what I achieved in my career. In my life, I think everybody gets that opportunity, but whether you take that opportunity or you use an excuse to say that you haven't got those opportunities, that's up to you. You make your life how you want it to be. If that's what you believe in, then it's not going to get you very far in life. And I think that's where we lose the focus of the Black Lives Matter. I understand because I've seen it happen that black treatment by cops. Some cops are really bad, and we have to weed them out, but you don't blanket everybody in that bunch because of one individual. Because we know good coppers, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's fuckwits in every line of work and all over the place. There's individual outlying fuckwits. But I think the reason these kids are getting so involved in this protest stuff is for the same reason that racism exists in the first place. Like I had this conversation with Wazza actually on the piss last time I was with him, trying to break down like the spectrum of love versus fear. And everyone goes around going, oh, it's love, hate, that's the spectrum. You either love something or hate something or somewhere in the middle. But in reality, it's like you love something, someone, concept, or you fear it. And through fear, you develop hate, right? So like once upon a time, there was a lot of like general racism through society. It doesn't matter what country it was in. And most of that comes from the fact that people feared what they didn't understand. It's like if most of the guys in the KKK, they don't have any black mates. They don't know anyone who's black, so they don't understand black culture. They don't understand black people, therefore they fear it. I mean, the problem we've got with the army is that's part of the propaganda machine, right? Is to drive fear through racism to get people to want to join the army to fight an evil enemy, not always colour-based, but religion, whatever it might be. So they kind of encourage the idea of developing fear in propaganda. And anyway, going back, like the kids these days that are rallying in these protests without having any idea of the facts, the stats, not knowing what they're doing, they just want to get behind a cause. Most of that's been driven by the fact that they now fear control by mass government, which is stereotypically old white men. And they're going, we don't understand capitalism. We don't understand the government. We fear it. We think it's trying to control us. So let's fucking burn it to the ground with hate. I'm like, that's kind of the same shit that's like underlying real racism. So we're going around in circles.
Yeah,
we're
man.
just picking different things to be.
You know what? It's easy to misconstrue the good actions of what people are trying to achieve with this Black Lives Matter, and you know the core of the issue that they want to talk about in America. And I've seen black coppers jump up and say, let's talk about this in an open and honest conversation. Yes, there is systemic issues in policing, but it's not everyone. It's individuals within certain places. Yes, there is systemic racism from years gone by. And it filters through as we go through generational stuff. But a lot of that comes down to where you were grown up, how you were brought up, you know, the circumstances that you were raised in. But this is my thing. Your living conditions when you grow up shouldn't dictate how you're going to turn out when you're older. So if you follow the line of thinking that because my granddad and my dad and my uncles hated police because they had this, they just didn't like police, I'm not going to like police. I haven't had bad run-ins with the cops, so I can't speak for that side of it. But what I have seen is the impact that bad cops have on good people, and good neighbourhoods and good communities. But if it's the same thing in the army. Like if you want to talk about racism in the army, you've got to talk about all of it. You can't just talk about individual stuff that's happened and may have happened. You've got to talk about all the bad stuff that's happened. You've got to talk about all the racist accounts. It's like sexual harassment. If you want to talk about sexual harassment, everything has to be on the table. It's like bullying. These bullying in the army is prevalent because we've seen it and you can be around it. But if you want to stamp it out, everything has to be on the table. So if we're going to talk about Black Lives Matter and racism, everything has to be spoken about. You can't just choose to not talk about that half of it because you don't want to bring that up. You know what I mean?
Mate, the military's got a lot of problems, right? But it's that complex. I don't think you can solve them. Like if we're slightly evolved monkeys, and you join the military, and they train you to knock off your logical thought process and become that monkey again, beat your chest real hard, and become the biggest dick in the room because you've got to go and fight bad dudes. And so that's kind of, you need to encourage that bullying mentality in order to develop the meanest monkey.
Drives everything, mate.
So you can't. It's kind of like
if you train people to be hammers, they're going to look at everything as a fucking nail, mate.
Exactly. Right. And so we're in like 2020 is like this limbo zone where there's probably World War III kicking off with China. We're about to need our most right-wing fucking gun-toting monkey gorillas with the biggest chest to beat, and everyone's going to want them back in about 6 months. We're going to be like, where are all those fucking knuckleheads that we shunned for the last 2 years when we went super left? Get them back because we've got to fight China. I'm like, you can't have both. You need a little bit. You need a little bit of bullying. You need a little bit of, there's bias in everything, and you need that to develop the tip of a spear.
I had, when I re-raised 3 platoon from scratch, I got given 2 corporals. Muddy was one, and another corporal who's still serving. And I had no boss, and they're like, "Fucking go nuts." Taz McGinley was the RSM, and I didn't bring back initiations, or I didn't bring back hazing. We brought back initiations, but which was you drink out of a fucking. We were the 3 platoon dogs. You drink out of a dog bowl, and that was it, mate. You walk, you fucking go up, drink out a blue beer out of a dog bowl, done. And the boys fucking loved it, and everyone got behind it. They want to be initiated. It is a rite of passage for an 18-year-old person. We used to do it in tribes where you'd have to go off, do a challenge in the wilderness. You'd come back and you become a brave in an Indian tribe, or there was always a rite. Then now there's no rite. I turned 18. I'm going to go and get fucking belligerent drunk, and then I'm just going to wake up with a hangover, and now I'm an adult.
Yeah,
and I can do all this cool stuff. But there's no rite of passage.
Solves 98% of problems, and the other 2% there's no problems. I can tell you that right now. I've preached that for a long fucking time. It's nothing. There's nothing. the only thing that eclipses violence is love. And at the moment, there's a time for love and there's a time for violence, and violent acts are needed. And people sleep peacefully in their beds at night because rough men are ready to do rough things to give them that right. I think George Orwell said that. So, or along them lines. If you're not willing,
Close. You may or may not have butchered the back end.
yeah,
It's close.
it was along them lines anyway. You know what I'm talking about. But if people persist with this whole thing that we don't need violence, we're in for a shock in the next battle that we go into, and it's not going to be around the other side of the world. It's going to be just north. And the last time that happened, World War II happened, and there's a very real factor there that we could have had a Japanese flag hanging over our fucking heads if it wasn't for violent men doing violent things on the track. And if we don't honour that and we don't live up to those expectations that they fought for, we're going to fall down. And I always said that
It's all ebbs and flows, bro. It's a cyclic. What do they say? It's hoops and roundabouts, and there's left and right. You go full left one way, then you go. There is always a counterbalance, and if you go too far left, it'll swing around.
Reaction,
and that's why there's two sides.
You can't throw a punch and expect nothing back.
The next thing is that in order to create a cult or an organization, you have to create an us and them mentality. You have to create an us and them mentality. And so turns out that there's only, according to politics, there's either you're super right-wing conservative or you're super left-wing hippie. Like, you got to be left or right. You're like, can I just be a moderate? And they're like, nah. Ultimately, we're going to split you down the middle, and there's going to be left and right.
I don't conform to any of those identities, and I never will. I'm happy being Coco with my little tribe up here, and I'm happy. I'm happy to tell people to get fucked if they need to be told to get fucked. It served me well in my whole
what I want to
that's one thing that like if you're not prepared to stand up for yourself and speak your mind when it's needed. And the last thing I said to all my medics and stuff when I was leaving, I said, sometimes, regardless of rank or relationship, some people just need to be told to get fucked. And if you're not prepared to do that, then you need to reassess why you're in this job, why you're, how you're going to make things better, why you're going to make it better. And you can't do that by conforming to what's been happening over and over again, because sometimes the cycle won't work unless you break the fucking cycle.
Organizational culture is a massive thing, and you see it in the army, and there is currently a issue where you have to follow orders, right? Cool.
Fuck, I'm gonna have to go. So I've got training in 12 minutes.
You don't have to be a sycophant. Yeah, you don't have to be a sycophant and be on the pole and like a subservient to somebody else's.
I've been telling you that for years, mate.
Whim.
Keep doing it.
You can disagree with something.
So I've been telling you that for years, and you keep doing it.
Yeah. You can disagree. At what point in the army were you allowed to be like, no, that's not a good idea?
In order to get burden, you grow some wisdom. Boys, I've got a hard out and about 1% battery, unfortunately. So if I disappear, I'll have to call you back later.
Yeah, that's right, mate. I've got to roll. I've got one-on-one training with a young fella. He wants to get better at sprinting takeoffs and stuff. But can I just say, huge, massive gratefulness from me to let me come and have a chat to you boys. You have no idea what that means to me to get recognised like that. I think, number one, I wasn't expecting to be on your podcast because I like listening to shit anyway. I like listening to your podcast. But number two, just respect from me for what you're doing and what we're trying to achieve with Swiss 8. And I think I've got so many people that come up to me and contact me on LinkedIn and, this Swiss 8 stuff you're doing, mate, can we get on board? It's like, yeah, man, you just let's go to the website. You'll see all the contact details, get in contact with people. There's so much good conversation around the product that you've created, Adrian and Mex. And I don't think you understand the impact that you've had on individuals, particularly like myself, who, we can bandy around and talk about shit and I'll get emotional, but yous have had such a positive impact on me that I'm proud to be an ambassador, and I'm grateful that yous have given me that opportunity. But I'm also proud to talk about this stuff when I talk to new soldiers and when I talk to old mates, you know, like getting them across into something that works and that gives them a little bit of meaning back and make them feel worthwhile and that they're loved. I think, you know, if you keep going on that, in the way that you're going, you are going to eclipse everything that's come before you and will eclipse everything that comes after you. And, you know, thanks for everything and thanks for letting me be part of this, because it's a journey that I know is going to go fucking hectic, and people just have to fucking stop and give themselves 5 minutes to just let it sink in that, you know, let's have fucking bad days. Let's recognize those fucking bad days, but don't let it fucking dictate who you are, and don't let it push you in a direction you don't want to go. You know, I might be a wounded digger and I might have PTSD, but it won't define me as a human being. And people like you are helping me remind myself every day that that's not going to define me, regardless of the bad days. So, you know, cheers for letting me be part of your program today, lads. And I know I've got to cut it short, and hopefully we can do it again and have a bit more of extended chat and tap it on. But you know, it's a privilege to be here talking to you boys and seeing your faces again. And I hope I get the bum tap yous at some stage.